The numbers are in after Prime Minister Mark Carney's first 150 days in office.
A new poll out this morning from Liason Strategies finds the Liberals hold a strong 9-point national lead over the Conservative Party, while Mark Carney himself has a 64% approval rating. Now, based on the regional breakdown, the Liberals would be on track for a majority if an election were held today. Here in Ontario, the Liberals lead the Conservatives by 11 points. Battleground Ontario, we like to call it. 68% of respondents say they see Carney as a strong leader, with 70% agreeing that they find him likable. So David Valenson from Liason Strategies joins us now live to talk more about this. Interesting numbers, 150 days in, that's, about 4 months, almost 4 months of time for the Prime Minister and his government here. The fact that they've got a 9-point lead over the Conservatives, who had such a massive lead about a year ago, how does that strike you, the fact that they've held on to a lead after there seemed to be so much support for the Conservatives almost up until the election was called last time?
Yeah, I mean, one thing we saw, of course, was they changed the leader.
Yes.
We had Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, now we've got Prime Minister Carney, and so much has happened since then. A trade war with the United States, the tariffs, all this uncertainty overseas. So in some ways, it's still a very early honeymoon for Mr. Carney. In other ways, the heavy lifting is yet to come. We've got that budget coming up in the fall.
Yep. Yeah, and things could really change for the better or for the worse. So let's talk about the positive things. Where is Carney kind of polling positively on certain issues that Canadians are facing today?
Well, it's very interesting. He's got a 64% approval rating, but when you ask Canadians about the specific issues, the ratings go down almost right away. And some of the numbers are still very positive. His highest marks, 56% approve of how he's handling Canada-U.S. relations, for instance. Those are pretty high numbers on the environment, also immigration, which is interesting. That was a bit of an election issue as well, where the Conservatives had an advantage. But some of his early moves there seem to be paying off.
You talk about you polled about the likability numbers there, sort of polling in around the 70% range here. People seem to like, particularly during the election campaign, this stance he appeared to be taking in terms of elbows up against President Trump and all of what's happening with the tariffs. But some people are kind of confused right now about exactly where Mark Carney or Canada's elbows are at this point. You mentioned honeymoon earlier. How tenuous do you think that likability number is, based on the fact that we don't have a clear sense of what our trade relationship is with the United States right now?
Well, I mean, I think there's been positive aspects and negative aspects, primarily with the United States right now. And there hasn't really been a conclusion. So I think for a lot of people, they see that there's still negotiations taking place. Something is supposed to be coming down the pipe. What ends up actually showing up, we don't know just yet. But I do think people have a lot of patience right now, especially because in times of crisis, you want to think that your leader is good and smart and is out to get you a good deal, right? He's got very strong personal numbers, but as I mentioned, on some of the issues that we're asking about, they're not so positive.
Yeah, and those not so positive issues are the cost of living, which of course is tied to this U.S. Trade tariff issue we're facing, and also crime, which is something that, when Pierre Poilievre was the leader of the Conservative Party, he kind of went pretty hard at.
This is something that the Conservatives have really been focusing on, bail conditions, what the federal government should or shouldn't be doing to more address crime, even though in some cases this comes down to the provinces or municipalities. But that's the narrative they're running with, and it seems to be sticking, right? But he still has that window of opportunity to change some of these things around. And as I mentioned, they're getting back to Parliament in the fall. There's going to be some events we know about. Mr. Poilievre is very likely going to rejoin the House of Commons. We'll see what it's like when he's out there prosecuting the Prime Minister. Yeah,
what about that? Because, they've been on summer break. Poilievre lost his seat, still the leader of the party, but it's August 18th, I think, is the actual by-election in the riding in Alberta there. Is any of this, do you think, to do with the fact that the Conservatives haven't had much sort of media coverage, because really so much of it has been focused on Carney and Trump and Carney and trade, et cetera, that Poilievre has kind of not really been part of the story almost?
Well, he's been out fighting this by-election, and he needs to post the best possible numbers he can. This is one of the safest Conservative seats. I don't think there's a question of whether he'll win, but we're all looking to see what's the margin going to be. How much is he going to win by? There's some very high expectations that have been set there. But, it's the summer. And the MPs are out doing barbecues, they're out glad-handing and doing all the picnics. So right now, not a lot of criticism, because it's mostly the government's agenda. But as I mentioned, we've been tracking these numbers now since the election. They've been pretty positive throughout. So we're going to see if that takes a turn once things actually show up in the fall.
We're super tight on time, but I've got to ask you about this longest ballot coalition, trying to get 200 names on the ballot, et cetera. What are your thoughts on that? Is this going to harm Poilievre's potential numbers, or do you see this as being a non-factor?
I think it's going to be very interesting interesting to know what people actually write in. Because writing in Conservative Party, your vote won't count. You have to write in Mr. Poilievre's name. You can write in Mr. Poilievre - Conservative Party, but there has to be his name involved.
Right.
And so I think it'll be interesting what the confusion, if any, is, and how many ballots actually end up being spoiled. Because it's a very different system that we have in place for this by-election now.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and he does have a long name, so brush up on your French.
Well, you can misspell it. You can misspell it.
Okay,
But you have to write in his
You have to
name, and
write
if you're
it.
just writing Conservative, it's not going to
Not
count.
good enough.
Okay.
Okay. David Valentin from Liaison Strategies. Always appreciate this. Thanks
Thank
for
you
the
so
numbers this
much.
morning.
Thank you, David.
Appreciate this.
Appreciate it.